So as I mentioned before, methods are kind of their own self-contained blocks of code, and they'll have variables in them that they can only access in that block of code. So it kind of presents the problem that in the main section of your code, let's say you have a variable that you need from the method that you're calling. Well, you won't be able to access it from that method, um, and you won't be able to use it in the main method then. So what you need to do is return the data from the called method. So in this case, again, just to reiterate, these would be called methods: the display inventory and the adventurer greeting. The main method is the calling method in this scenario because it's calling these methods here. Okay, so in that scenario, the calling method can get data returned to it from a called method. Okay, so this is done inside that method by using the return keyword, and the return keyword is a special keyword that you can basically use to return data, but it also can be used to exit out of the method that you're in. And if you use it in main, it actually can end the program as well. So it just returns back to the calling method essentially. It's a keyword that is used to return back to the calling method. And then a variable in the calling method can be set and returned set to its returned value. So you can have a variable that you declare and initialize in the main section of the program, the main method. You can then call another method, and then when you go into that method, you change the value of the method of the variable that was originally declared and initialized in the main method, and then return that change that you made to it to the main method, and it will be changed for the rest of the program after that. So how do we set up a method to return data? So if you remember in the method signature, one of the things I had mentioned was the return type. Okay, so static is, we'll get into that later. It's access specifier, but we can get into that later. Um, return type is the data that is going to be returned from the method when we're returning one piece of data here like in this scenario. Okay, so I have this kind of method I just kind of made up here, return numbers. Okay, and return numbers will basically declare an integer variable called returning value, and it will be 100 plus 100. It will add those integers together, and then it will return that returning value to the main method. Okay, and in the main method, I have integer called saving returned values. Okay, so this value, this returning value that I've set essentially in the return numbers method, all right, I am going to save that number, so the number 200, I'm going to save it to the saving returned values variable that I declared in the calling method, and this is the syntax for that essentially. So the return, essentially what's happening here is we're declaring this integer variable, it's empty, and then we're setting the integer variable, okay, to the value of the return numbers method. So whatever gets returned from the return numbers method gets set, its value, okay, gets set to the saving returned values integer variable. And return numbers is returning, again, remember, an integer. Okay, it's returning an integer return type. So the integer return type here, okay, is the value is being returned and saved to this variable, okay, which we have in the main method, okay. So in that method there, okay, in that example, it's kind of just some basic arithmetic, but you can do all sorts of things. You could do that for strings or floats or anything like that. This scenario is a little bit different. So we have a string my name, and we're setting it equal to Ned. Okay, it's declared and initialized before the method call. And then we're setting the value of my name, Ned, to a method called username change. All right. And we're passing username change the my name variable. Okay. So we're doing that, okay, because we want to use this my name variable, okay, in the username change method. So if we go down here, okay, we'll see again static, it returns a string this time, okay. This is the name. The name of the method is username change, and it has a string of my name parameter, okay, right? So the my name variable, all right, we're passing it to username change, okay. The value of my name, okay, which is Ned, gets stored in this temporary my name parameter, okay. All right. We declare a string username input in this method. We print off the name of the my name parameter here that we had passed it. So this will be Ned, right? Would you like to change your name to? And then it'll ask what you want to change your name to. Um, or it says, sorry, it says, what would you like to change your name to? And then it says the name that was originally inputted. And then we'll go ahead and the user will enter a new name. We'll clear the console, and then we will return the user's name input. Will return the new username that we got in this method, okay? So we go ahead and we're returning the username input, okay, based off of, um, and then we're setting it to my name here, okay? So a little confusing, but basically, just to reiterate, the string my name, okay, which is Ned, okay, it's been set to Ned, okay. Um, we're taking that my name, okay, and we're setting it equal to the value that is returned from the new username change method, okay, and we are giving the username change method the value of my name, okay. So we're giving it username change, we're giving it my name, okay. So in this case, it would be Ned, all right. We're declaring a string username input. We're printing Ned, the name that we've been given to the screen, so we can ask them if they want to change their name, and tell them, it also tells them what name that they currently have, and then they will type in the new name, and then we will return that name as the new value of the new name um, of the user. So if we go back to the program here, okay, um, we have the adventurer greeting, right? So if we scroll down to adventurer greeting, it prompts for the adventurer name, and then it goes ahead and does all the stuff that we kind of had set up, and then it prints off the adventurer's name. So if we go ahead and we go back up here, okay, remember we had we had to essentially make another variable for adventure name because the value was not saved from this method here, the adventure greeting method. Okay, so what we want to go ahead and do now, all right, and we're going to scroll back down to the the adventure greeting method. I'm going to change this, okay, and I'm going to change this to return data, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take this void and I'm going to turn this into a string. And you can see that I am getting an error, right? So the error says not all code paths return a value. So when you change it to a return, you change the return type in a method, you need to return that data or you will get an error. So we'll go ahead and we can set the return type, or we can set the method to return the adventurer name. Okay, and we can go up here, and instead of doing this where we have to set the adventurer name to like a hard-coded value, we can go ahead and instead do this where we essentially we need to still declare it because it needs to exist in this method, and the variable has not been declared yet. So I can just go ahead and actually I'll delete this, and you'll see I'll get those errors. But if I do this, you'll see I no longer get those errors. So if we save this, so essentially what I'm doing here is I'm creating a string variable, or sorry, I'm declaring a string type variable called adventurer name, and I'm setting adventurer name equal to the adventurer greeting method, the value that is returned from that, which is a string. So if I go down here, it returns a string, okay, and I'm returning the adventurer name, okay, which gets set in this method by the user's input. Now if we go back up here, we also kind of talked about method that passes data and returns data, okay? So that one's a little bit more complicated, and we're going to go over that now. So let's say maybe you want to create a method where you want to give the user the ability to like change their name during their adventure. So what we could go ahead and do is we could scroll all the way down again, and we'll make another method, okay? And we'll call this uh, static. It's going to return a string, and we'll call this name change. All right, and we want it to accept a string variable, so we'll do adventurer name param. It's a kind of a long variable name, not the best, but that's okay. And we'll go ahead and we'll see that we're getting an error again, not all code paths return a value, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and start writing a little bit of code here. We'll go ahead and we'll just do console.writeLine and say, the insert key looks to be like it's on. What would you like to change your name to? We'll do a space before the quotation. We'll say adventure name param is what we want to go ahead and print to screen, and then a question mark after that, and semicolon at the end of the line. So we will then set adventure param to console.readline. And then we will return the adventure parameter. And so now, if we go ahead and go to the top here, adventurer's name will now be the name that gets changed to. So if we go ahead and save everything, we'll see. We'll say my name is Rich. Would you like to begin my adventure? Yes. And then it prints off my inventory, my name, and then it asks, what would you like to change your name to, Rich? And I'll say Joe or Jimbo. And you can see here that now the rest of the code, the adventure name has the new value. Okay. So we typed in Jimbo, and now adventure name has been set to that value.